I like John, right? I like him a lot. I think that he's a very sharp guy. I think that there is a realistic world where he ends up keeping Duke at the same level. At the same time, your first head coaching gig is taking over as one of the greatest coaches to ever do it. Your first head coaching gig as a 34-year-old is to try to replace a guy that bare minimum, right? If let's just call Coach K a top 5 coach of all time. If Jon Scheyer does not end up being a top 5 coach of all time, then he is a step down from the guy that he's replacing. Like that is just a nightmare scenario to walk into on your first job. And there's no way he can say he can turn it down, right? And he very well might end up being a great coach that can bring national titles back to Duke. But that's so much pressure to walk into. Like I don't know how you I don't know. It's hard. That's all I'm saying is it's hard. Like I hope that they give him some leeway, man.
Do you try to fill those shoes though?
No.
Like,
yeah, it's not possible.
I kind of feel like I would never even attempt to. Like, why try to fill those shoes? Like, for example, you think of Coach K, what he has, how many wins total?
1,000 something more than anybody else is going to get.
Exactly. And with that thought process, I remember when Lon Kruger retired, and I was just sitting there like, yeah, he didn't even get to like close to 1,000. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, Lon Kruger is a great coach who retired, and it was one of the greatest coaches to ever coach. Like, when John's done, if John does everything the right way, obviously, and does things the way he's supposed to, it doesn't matter if you can't touch Coach K. You're still a great coach. Mm-hmm. Like, if they won a national championship and never won another one with John as the head coach, I mean, John's still not Coach K, but he's still a great coach that had a chance to win a national championship. So, I mean, I kind of feel like guys, any coach, like you shouldn't be out here trying to fill anyone's shoes. Like no two paths are the same.
Yeah,
like,
it's just the level of expectation that gets put on you when you're the head coach at Duke. And he has no control over that. But Duke fans expect you to be competing for national titles, right? There's media members that expect Duke to be competing for national titles. If Duke ends up being a team that every year goes 24-10 and makes it to the Sweet 16, right? They're a really good program. Is that going to be something that the Duke fan base and the Duke donors and the Duke alums and the people that write about the sport and people like me and you and Fanta, is that going to be something where we say, okay, he's doing the job that is expected at Duke? And like, that's no fault of his own, but that's something that could very well happen in this environment. Go ahead, Fanta. I see. I love this video right now because I could see Fanta's reaction. I just know that he's got something to say. So go ahead, John.
I'm just saying, Duke hasn't gone to a Final Four since 2015. Mm-hmm. As we head into next year, that's the longest gap without a Final Four appearance for this program.
And Coach K's there.
Since the late 1970s. Late 1970s. All good things must come to an end. Mike Krzyzewski has done it all. There's nothing more that he could have done. He's in his mid-70s. When you make a change, you're absolutely right, Rob. The Duke expectation level for their head coach is unrealistic to achieve.
Yes.
You have to do it your own way. If I'm Jon Scheyer, I called Juwan Howard. I talked to him for an hour. And I talked to him about stepping into Michigan, post John Beilein, John Beilein, I am not comparing Duke and Michigan. I promise you I'm not, but I'm using another case to give a taste of what it's like, in my opinion. John Beilein, guys, made it really, really hard to replace him at Michigan because we're talking about the Wolverines, what Beilein was doing before he departed for the Cleveland Cavaliers, that they were winning at an incredible rate. And the Juwan Howard hire was a feel-good hire, but the thought in mind was, is this going to work out? Well, I think Juwan Howard's gone about things his way. He's gone by his own beat. His team plays like an NBA team when I watch them play, and he conducts himself like an NBA coach. And it works. It's worked out quite well in Ann Arbor. Jon Scheyer cannot live in the shadow of his coach. He can't do it. You cannot do it. I think it's really hard to achieve. And I think that Jon Scheyer has what it takes to be a head coach. But if he is constantly hinging on the Duke way, the Krzyzewski way, you can both respect that way and try to take on the spin that you'd like to make on the program. Because here's the fact. The way that Duke had been doing things is no longer the way that you rise above everyone else in college basketball. So it's going to take some changes. It's going to take Duke potentially recruiting some players that Mike Krzyzewski wasn't willing to recruit and develop. Talent development in this sport and keeping a relationship with a kid has never been more important. You look at the programs that are at the top of college basketball. You look at what Mick Cronin did in building relationships with kids that he did not recruit. He kept them by his side, and look what happened to the Bruins. Look what happened to Baylor, to Gonzaga, to these other programs that have been at the top of the sport. You have to think outside the box. The sport is changing. Duke has to change. You can't just be the same old Duke Blue Devils. Like the Yankees can't just be the same Yankees, and Yankee fans know all too well right now the feeling. You can't just rely on what you were doing for 30 years and say, this is our formula. At some point, you're going to get beat if you stay at this level. And when you're a coach in your mid-70s and you've been doing it all your life, I totally get Mike Krzyzewski, who was always willing to say the right thing. But the fact is, guys, the last couple of years, it felt like the Duke was losing games that it hadn't been losing when Coach K was at peak Coach K. So for me, I don't think the timing is bad. However, I do think that both Duke and Carolina, they left themselves limited. Like, you pick these replacements. I think both guys are capable. My biggest question is, I'm actually toying with this question. Who has a better chance of having championship success at respective school? Hubert Davis at North Carolina or Jon Scheyer at Duke? I'd probably vote Hubert Davis at North Carolina if you ask me today. That answer could change, but that would be my vote. But I'd be curious to see who would win that poll.